Chapter 5's EIG just came to an end, and with it came 3 VHSs that might have just shown us not only our allies in Chapter 5, but also how the chapter would end. Let me explain first by breaking down restricted conditioning.
What is your name? What is your experiment number? Can you tell me who you are?
So in this first scene, we see that Catnap is clearly in the labs, and specifically in the same room we saw in the prototype trailer, with the sky panels in the windows of his room. Here we hear the scientist asked what his name is, seemingly as a test to see how much he remembered after being turned into Catnap. But Catnap isn't having it and crashes out on the scientists. But that's it for this scene, so let's move on. Okay, so here we get a lore dump on Catnap, saying he was turned into a toy on November 7th, 1990, which is the same date that we see in the title. The bottom paragraph states that on the 20th of November, just 2 weeks after his experimentation, he was put out of the prison and in towed labs for reconditioning, causing him to kill 6 staff and injure 8, which we can assume is exactly what happened before the first scene in the trailer, as implied by the aggressiveness of Catnap. Moving on.
It feels weird seeing them like this.
Like what?
Like feral? I don't know. I hardly recognize him.
Preston, if I didn't know you, I'd say you sounded like a new guy.
In this scene, we see Catnap, who was seemingly tranquilized, being carried out to his conditioning room by 2 doctors, with one stating that it's weird seeing him like this, sharing that Catnap always had a soft side for some employees, like how he did for us, giving us multiple chances to leave the Playcare. It's revealed that this scientist is named Preston, and if you remember, this is the same name as the scientist in the Poppy Playtime orientation notebook. But that's it for this scene, so let's carry on.
Does it ever bother you, the way they act after we...
No, not really. The work's important.
Okay, so there's a lot to break down here. It seems like as a part of Catnap's conditioning, they're making him watch Smiling Critters cartoons and Playtime COC VHS tapes, and from what Preston is saying, it looks like they're doing this to change his behavior, by forcing him to watch how Catnap walks, talks and acts to fully make him fit his role in the Playcare as a forceful sleeping agent to collect orphans. After he's done watching this cartoon, it seems like he immediately starts trying to process what he just saw, as we see him just looking down in the same position. We then see him being tranquilized by a remote device implanted on his paw that looks like it has poppy gas or gel in it. When he realizes it's activated, he then says his name is Theodore, remembering who he was before being turned into Catnap, and also seemingly showing more compliance, as he's answering what the scientists asked him earlier. But that's it, so let's move on. This is extremely disturbing. We're told that Catnap was in the labs being conditioned for almost 2 whole months, being tortured psychologically with the cartoons, and from the next scene physically as we hear him screaming in pain. They're most likely doing this with a form of shock collar, as we know that's what Catnap's weak to, and would be useful as it wouldn't damage his looks. This is most likely being used when he says a wrong answer to use operant conditioning, slowly turning him into Catnap. This would also explain why he just sits there and watches the cartoon. If he doesn't, he gets shocked. Kind of reminds me of someone. Anyways, let's move on.
I know it's important, Newman, but you can't deny the cost is... well, there is a cost.
You just can't dwell on it. The trick is to stay focused. Besides, if Grace's treatment plan here works, 1188 won't be feral for long. What is your name? What is... yes, your name, please.
Well, that sent chills down my spine. But before we get into whatever the ending was, let's cover the start. Okay, so here we get a much closer look at Catnap's room, and we pretty much get confirmation that this was his room when he was Theodore. We see toys scattered all over the place along with Catnap resting on the ground, most likely completely worn out after all of his experiments. After this, we hear the scientists say that this treatment plan was made by a person named Grace, which could either be a new character or could be a nickname for Stellar Grabber. There's also a possibility it's whoever is talking in the Poppy Playtime Discord, but I doubt it, because they seem much more clueless. But after this, we see the most disturbing scene in the trailer. Catnap is asked for his name again, and for a bit, he almost says Theodore, but most likely remembering what happens to him if he does, he gives up and says that he is Catnap.
The name is Catnap.
With his eyes gaining the glowing white circles we know him for. Now, we'll get into why this is later, so let's move on to our last scene. In this scene, we are in the perspective of a scientist in the labs, running away either during the hour of Jure or in the previously mentioned incident where Catnap attacked a bunch of people. This is very similar to the scene we saw all the way back in the Chapter 3 gameplay trailer, showing a cut VHS tape of a person running away from Catnap during the hour of joy in the playhouse. From this, I believe we'll get an extended version of this tape in Chapter 5, showing all of the people that Catnap has killed. But that's actually all of the scenes for this VHS, so let's theorize. But wait, before that, make sure you like the video and are subscribed for more theories, or else Catnap will find you. Now, my first major question while watching this trailer was, why bring back the focus to Catnap? We killed him in Chapter 3, and ever since then, we haven't even gotten the mention of him in almost any of the lore. So why? I mean, Army was given the same treatment, even being dragged away by the prototype like Catnap, but we don't see a VHS for her. Well, I believe that the answer is actually very simple, and it's because of their small rings we see in his eye that appear at the end of the trailer. See, before this Catnap had no eye rings as we see in the VHS, similar to how Dog Day was when we encountered. But when he gave up into control and lost his aggressiveness, he gained these eye rings. Now, you might be asking, where did these even come from, and what do they mean? Well, back in Chapter 3, if we pay attention to Dog Day, during the chase scene, we can see that after he was taken over by Femini critters, his eyes gained the very same eye rings we see on Catnap. At first, we thought that these rings were just from the mini critters, but this can't be the case, as we know Dog Day tries to fight back the mini critters as they chase us in his body, implying his brain wasn't eaten, meaning these eye rings are from him. But why? Well, the common attribute with Catnap and Dog Day is that they gain these rings when they are beaten up, and at their lowest point being forced to do something or say something that they don't believe in, like Catnap saying he's Catnap, and not Theodore or Dog Day, being moved by the mini critters to chase us. This is why I believe that these ring, or at a closer look, the eyes only appear on toys when they are fully controlled, and under the impression that they are their experiment number, and not the child or the human. This explains why the mini critters in the Playcare have them, but the ones in the safe haven don't, and even why we haven't seen the mummy VHS tape yet, as she was seemingly almost never under control, which we see when she drops the axe that she was conditioned to have, and changes into the vengeful kid she is when she chases us, with notably her eyes dilating and becoming almost completely black, with small green rings, just like Catnap. And this right here might just be how these to come back in Chapter 5. See, Chapter 5 is named Broken Things, implying of course that we'll be seeing broken things, and from each teaser showing the prototype experimenting with this poppy gel on dead critters, I believe that the prototype is actually going to revive Catnap and Mummy. But they won't look like how they did when they were alive, but will instead be zombies made by the poppy gel, with veins popping out of their body, like how we saw in the prototype's trailer, being forced to roam the same holes they were tortured in. But that's pretty much it for conditioning. I am busy editing the other 2 videos of the other 2 tapes, so keep that in mind. Thank you guys for watching. Like, subscribe, and check these videos right here, and we will see each other next time.